Hi guys, just dropping in to give you a video. Some of you, it might be a reminder of things we used to do a long time ago before we got a ton of equipment. And for those of you that are starting out, it's a great way if you don't have very many things in your stash or very many tools, something that you can easily do and it doesn't require a lot of money. Makes for great additions into your journal. You can attach a paper clip on the back, and depending on which way you orient it, it can go up and down on a page or from the side. So they make great ones like that. So I have one here that I whipped up today, and I thought, well, I'll just show you how this is just an easy peasy one. You can certainly make them more complicated looking. You can do newsprint or advertising or book page collages on them. This one is done with a napkin. And there's a couple of layers to it. So with that, we're going to start, and I'll just show you how these ones went together. And then if you want to give them a try, honestly, they're a lot of fun and you can get a lot of different looks. So I just did a couple up today with some different napkins I already had hiding in the stash. This one I painted all of them an off-white. I think it was called antique white. Ceramcoat paint. So if I was using dark napkins normally, I would just paint the background black and you would get a darker color on that. And this one had a tiny hole in the piece of napkin that I used, so I just put a patch over it. I don't mind them. They just come out a little darker and it just looks kind of interesting. But again, up to you if you want to do that or not. This one, and this one. So you can see they look quite different. You can customize them for your different journals. Okay? All right, so step one, other than me getting rid of my copy dyed paper here, is you get your piece of puzzle. I actually really like the larger size kids puzzles just because they're, like this. I got a whole bag full at the thrift store. I think they wanted $1, but the day I was in, it was a 50% off day, so I got them for 50 cents, and there's a ton of them in there. I probably never used them all. So anyways, they're really great. I do have a punch as well. I think it's a Fisker one that's a puzzle punch. And you can make them smaller than that. I used to use that one on cards. And you can, if you have a puzzle punch or a die, you can definitely cut out layers of your cereal boxes and use those. So here's our puzzle piece that we're going to start on. And the first thing I usually do is use some gesso on it. The gesso is kind of like a liquid plaster, I think. And basically what that does is just gives everything a bit of surface to stick to. Now, if you don't own gesso, because I think it was, $10.99 for this jar about this big. And if you don't have any, it's not the end of the world. What you can do is just get one of your little emery board nail files and just scuff the surface lightly so that it is not totally messed up, okay? So this is what you do with your gesso. I like to kind of go around my edges a bit so that everything when I paint is also going to be finished. You don't have to do that. It's a step that's entirely up to you. I personally like all my edges finished, but that doesn't apply to everybody. Some people like their stuff way more rustic than me, and that doesn't make it right or wrong. That's just a personal choice, okay? So once this is on here like this, you let it dry. If you're going to blow it dry because you want to get these done faster, blow it dry, but keep the blow dryer a bit of a distance away because too much heat, they are just cardboard and paper. It can sometimes cause them to curl or bubble a bit, okay? So the next step would be to get your paintbrush, and this isn't an advertisement for them, but I did use this antique white color. And so you paint your whole puzzle piece. So I've already prepped this so you don't have to watch me paint it, because it's basically exactly the same thing you do with your gesso. Once the paint is dry, which this is, so sometimes it's really good if you sit and do a bunch of these in one day and then let them dry overnight or a couple of days, and when you get back to them, it's really nice. Today, I am using matte Mod Podge, which I will tell you is not my favorite thing to use. I prefer matte art medium, but I can't find it. So today I'm using the matte Mod Podge. It is, even though it says it's matte, it's still shinier than I normally like it. But anyways, there it is. So then you are going to do your whole surface of your puzzle piece. Just do the top for the moment, like this, and get it all over the surface. You try and have it fairly smooth, because it doesn't matter if it's rough and a bit bunchy underneath. It just makes a different look on your project. So once you've got that like that, I have already pre-cut out my napkin piece, and I hope all of you know about removing the backings off your napkin. You can use a small piece of Scotch tape and just start in one corner, and it will help you lift it. And then I just cut it off. Now I'm going to show you, if I can lay my fingers on it. The napkins, some of them are printed, well, I can't find it. This one, there's two sides of the whole thing that have these little florals on the bottom. And I save those pieces and use them for altering envelopes. But the whole back 4 pieces of this napkin is just a plain pattern on it. And so that makes a really great background for this kind of thing. So you just put it on and just gently, you got to be really gentle because the glue is already starting to come through this paper. You can use paper napkins. You can use the rice paper napkins, like these guys that are very, very thin. They tear more easily, so something to keep in mind. You can use tissue paper. You can use solid paper, book paper, magazine paper, dictionary paper, anything like that also works. So what I do at this point is I get my handy dandy little scissors out once I've stuck that down that far. We used to do this a lot when the girls were younger. And now nobody's home, and I've kind of half forgotten about doing it because I haven't used it for a long time, and I pulled too hard on that. So here goes a little patch, right? And all the patching does is it will turn darker when you put the top layer of Mod Podge on it. I don't really worry about that too much, but some people might, and if it does, well, then you might want to be pulling the whole thing off. Seems like a lot of work for something that you're just going to grunge up and rustic up a little bit. It does tear a lot easier when it's wet, so you do want to just be a little bit careful. This one I can see pretty well through it, but if you've got a darker one, you just kind of eyeball it. And sometimes I cut in 2 or 3 times so I can get at it in these little pieces like this. And you just kind of gently pull away what you can. Anything that's left over, we're curling around the edges and folding a bit over on the back. So I don't worry extensively about getting a really great looking cut on this. It's just more to trim off a lot of excess because it makes it a lot easier for tucking it down onto the puzzle piece. Speaking of which, if you don't happen to own any gesso and it's not in your budget, that's not the end of the world. Either you just use the, like I said, use a nail file, like an emery board, give it a bit of a light scuff. If you don't have any Mod Podge, and that's also not in the budget because I know what everybody's like with budgets, you can mix about 2/3 of a white glue, like Elmer's school glue, LePage's white glue, even tacky glue. I would say about 3 parts water to 1 part, no, sorry, wrong way around. 3 parts of glue to 1 part of water. And that will make us quite a bit like a Mod Podge type effect. If it's a little too runny, just add a little bit more glue to it. And then what you do is you just kind of get your brush and your Mod Podge, and you just sort of coax it over the corners. I don't mind using my fingers or the end of your brush to get into the curves there. And when you get these sitting like this, they are really good because you can give yourself a really customized look in your journals, because these will match the papers that you're using. All right, and then sometimes I just put my finger in there and coax it around the edge. Some of them go easier than others, but you know, it's not rocket science. It'll lay down if you give it a chance. Anything that's really long, once it's wet, will kind of pull off. Just be gentle so you don't do what I did at the start there and rip a hole with it. And I try and keep my fingers the most on the edges. This starts to get really gummy. So when you're doing this, you know, you start sticking to everything, and it will pull stuff off if you're not a little careful with how you handle it. So this is just it. You keep going around like this until you get to the end, and then it's a let it dry process. Again, you can use your blow dryer if you're really impatient and in a hurry, or you're doing it all on the same day. I would caution you again to not get too close to the glue with your blow dryer. It does tend to make the paper ripple more. So, you know, if you don't mind the ripple look, great, go for it. If you want it to lay down more smoothly, like, you know, like it sort of looks, oops, see? Now I'm getting sticky. Then, yeah, and you just run it with your, you know, run your paintbrush into those edges in the curves there. It works really well, the paintbrush handle. And we're going to coat it down. Okay? Let's just make sure we don't have really thick gobs of glue on there. And as this gets wet, it does tend to stretch. So the tissue paper or napkin paper, so you want to be careful. It sometimes wants to pull away from the surfaces, and you just kind of help it along with your fingers, or I'm hoping I'm still in the screen here, or with the curve of your brush. Lay it over flat at the back if there's a lot of overhang. See how I'm starting to get sticky here now? Okay, so when that is done, like this, all right, I'll just tell you what I did to finish the rest of it. And you just let that dry. Blow dryer, again, not too close or you're going to have a lot of rippling going on. So at this point, I should have prepped one more. Sorry. Once that is finished, I just used, for me, I used StazOn glue, Timber Brown, let me show you. I stamped this lovely little fern pattern on it with StazOn. If you don't have StazOn, use one that's not water activated, probably like the dye inks, you know, instead of the Tim Holtz Distress inks or the oxides would be a problem, because once you put anything else on there, if there's any moisture, it's going to run. Okay. So I just stamped, and what you do is try and make sure you're just putting part of it in different places so you get a bit of a print, and that's just one more layer on top of your napkin. And then, I have a few things. Now, I am an inveterate thrift store goer. I just go all the time. I shouldn't, but I do. We don't have tons of stores here for supplies. So we try and scrounge whatever we can when we can, because it makes for nicer looking stuff. So I did get these little sunflowers, this whole package at the thrift store for 50 cents. And all I did was pop one of these off of here, and it does pull off this grab a plier here. This part did pull off. Now I'm not saying all of them would, but this one did after a little bit of work. And I pulled it off, or you can cut it off if yours doesn't want to come off. This one doesn't come off as easy as my last one did, that's for sure. And then it's going to get glued onto here. So you pick. Now, you really do have to look at your puzzle piece and decide which way you're going to orient it if you're putting it on a paper clip. So then you would pick your flower, like I kind of like these ones here. There's enough room to run a paper clip here or here. And so I would probably put it here. And I'm not going to glue it because this is still all wet. But I just want to show you the process of what I did. And then I used an awl to poke a hole here. If you don't have one of those, a really strong safety pin with a pair of pliers, or a safety pin, a really good thick strong needle with a pair of pliers will push through. Those push pins also push through. And then I just use my scissors. So I do have dies, but in case you don't, I just cut 3 pieces of paper, similar size for leaves, kind of in a leaf shape. And then I do like more than one color of ink on the leaves. So the first one I did was this Distress Oxide Peeled Paint. And where did my leaves go? There they are. So I usually do at least 2 or 3, sometimes 4 colors on my leaves. Even these little small ones, it just gives them a bit more interest than just flat green. That's just me. You can paint them. You could just ink them dark green or a green if you want to. I tend to like them to look a little more dimensional than that. Okay, so then I had, I just picked 3 colors of green that I happened to find in the drawer as I was picking up greens. This one is, I don't know, it's a Versamagic, so it's a chalk one, it's more opaque, but it is a slightly darker color and it just kind of tones down the green. Can you see the difference? Tones down the green a bit. So I just went over them again. Not everywhere, I don't mind if some of the different colors of green poke out. But I do them like that. And then I have some red on this little finger one. It's kind of a dark burgundy red. And I just like to go around the edges with that. Can you see that? I hope you can see that. And I find that that just helps them. You know, they just look more dimensional if they've got extra colors. These leaves, maybe because this one reminded me of fall, you know, the leaves are starting to turn brown and dry up, and so a little bit of extra color on there doesn't hurt. So now, is that in there? Yes. So then I would be gluing these in. One. Well, let's see. Mine is not sitting well, and I'm annoyed about that. But anyways, and this is really sticky, so let's put 1. We'll put 2 here, like this, like that, and then 1 more down in here. Okay, so that's kind of how I did those. I would trim more of the plastic off the bottom of this. And then, can you see? Yes, you can see. So whenever I buy any scrap jewelry from the thrift stores, garage sales, anywhere I go, I grab these little bits of chain like this. I would poke a hole in the end of the puzzle piece like I did here, put a jump ring through it, right? And then I've got this chain hanging on here, 3, 4, 5 different little links on it. And then you can add your charms, and it's really finished, and it looks like fall to me. Did put a little bit of this strange eyelash trim, again, thrift store find, and you can do that. I thought I might put a little banner in here. It said something to do with fall, but I haven't gotten to that. So there you go. And those are just altered pieces. You can put them so they hang down the bottom here, and hopefully they look kind of fall-like. And it's just something different that you can dress up. On this, as you can see, I haven't finished, but I made sure before I started that a paper clip would fit there. It does fit here with a little bit visible, but I really like it where it's not. So if I was doing it, I think it would be along here, and I would be sliding it this way or the other way onto a journal on the side of the page. Anyways, I hope that gives you an idea. And if it were me, I would be doing Jeannie's book and sticking one of these in your idea book, because down the road, the longer you work on stuff, you kind of forget all the fun things you started out doing, and they kind of get lost in the past. So it's kind of great to revisit some of these things. So if you're not with these, you can use any kind of focal point that you think. These are a little more dimensional. You could punch circles out and mat them with birds or something on them, or do fussy cutting and stick those on there, and it would look great. Anyways, there it is for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.